In other developments this week, it was made easier for groups which assist US operations in Syria to receive military support from Washington. It's after President Obama waived part of the Arms Control Export Act, and there's a newly created rebel group ready for more weapons too. Known as the Syrian Elite Forces, they're 45,000 strong, and according to the American army, are fighting ISIL in northern Syria. Their leader is well known to Western governments as a prominent Syrian opposition figure. In fact, in the past, he's met French President Francois Hollande and the US Secretary of State John Kerry. But among US lawmakers, there are some who oppose Washington's decision here too.
We must stop this madness. We must stop arming terrorists. I'm introducing the Stop Arming Terrorists Act today to prohibit taxpayer dollars from being used to support terrorists.
Washington's decision to beef up its military support comes despite failing to successfully equip and train rebels in Syria in the past.
هذه بعض المساعدات الأمريكية التي ألقيت للملحدين.
Can you tell us what the total number of trained fighters remains?
It's a small number, and the ones that are in the fight is we're talking four or five.
We are trying to recruit and identify people that, as you put it, can be counted on to have the right mindset and ideology, not be aligned with groups like ISIL. It turns out to be very hard to identify people who meet both of those criteria.
It looks like President Obama is even loosening the standards for putting weapons into the hands of people that we don't even pretend are vetted moderates, like that fiasco with those 4 or 5 fighters that they were able to produce some months back. Now we're talking about throwing weapons out there like Christmas cookies to people that we know are terrorists.
Commenting on the decision, the US State Department said that any assistance given to the rebels is carefully monitored, but they can't guarantee that their weapons won't eventually change hands. Gali Chichikan's across the story in more detail for us.
The Obama administration says that the weapons are intended for Syrian rebels fighting terrorists, notably Syrian Democratic Forces, who are now working to liberate Raqqa from ISIL. The SDF has recently teamed up with around 45,000 fighters of the so-called Syrian Elite Forces, so presumably they will be getting some of the weapons. Here's one of the questions that comes up with the new influx of U.S. weapons in Syria.
What will happen to these weapons after the rebels fight ISIL? Who will they be turned against?
Again, I mean, look, this is all, and this is something we've been working very hard on, and this is the last question on this, working as we liberate, or these groups, frankly, the Syrian Democratic Forces liberate territory in Syria. We work to bring and provide stability back into these cities. Work with local governments, local councils to reestablish stability in these areas. We're also working with these groups, and this is something that our special envoy Brett McGurk is in constant contact with many of these groups, as well as with Turkish authorities and others in the region on what comes next, and that's something we're looking at down the road. But the immediate priority here is defeating Daesh. And like I said, we wish that other foreign actors in Syria had those same aims.
What about, is it only against Daesh?
I've answered your questions. Please, go ahead.
It's an interesting question with al-Nusra, which is al-Qaeda in Syria, because the terrorists have partnered with the rebels in eastern Aleppo. According to a U.S. official, the weapons will not be going to them, but will go to rebels in other regions. However, the Obama administration says it cannot guarantee that the weapons will not end up in the hands of terrorists.
The assistance that we provide to these groups is obviously done under careful monitoring. But, of course, I'm never going to be able to say on any given battlefield, and we've talked about this before, that equipment, assistance can't change hands, but we haven't seen it recently. And, in fact, to the contrary, as ISIL has lost territory, as it's been on the run,
The administration's latest decision to send more arms to the rebels suggests that they have now found the right people, and they are in the tens of thousands.
There's more too. The US has also revealed its readiness now to increase its own military presence in Syria. That's from Defense Secretary Ashton Carter.
The United States will deploy approximately 200 additional U.S. forces in Syria, including Special Operations Forces trainers, advisors, and explosive ordnance disposal teams. These uniquely skilled operators will join the 300 U.S. Special Operations Forces already in Syria.
This step comes at a time when the Syrian forces, backed with the Russian and the Iranian forces, are being able to take over Aleppo. And this is considered as a severe blow to the American strategy in Syria and in Iraq.
As we just heard, 200 forces, including military experts, will head out to Syria. However, evidence emerged earlier this year that US troops in the Middle East weren't there solely as advisors.
Let me tell you something. I'm from the United States of America, and I say kill them all.
But they're not alone in their fight. People are volunteering to come here, leaving our jobs behind, leaving our families behind to come and help. I love the YPG. I love my YPG brothers, my YPGA sisters. This was the pretext, for example, for to fight terrorism that made the United States send what it called military advisors to Iraq. But this was only the first step towards sending thousands of troops. And we don't know the exact number of troops that are fighting in Iraq now against Daesh. But the main purpose was to have a foothold near Mosul, which is a very strategic region in Iraq. So the next step will be to hold on to Raqqa as an alternative to Aleppo.